with members of the Waitangi Trust Board. It was there he asked for arrangements to be made. Meeting.
The decision to meet the Hikoi is obviously an important one. The representative himself will be meeting the Hikoi, and to me it is an important meeting in view of the numbers attending, the Hikoi people, and also trying to diffuse any situations that may arise. This is, to me, is an important decision.
Hikoi leaders are delighted with the move and hope it could lead to them being able to present their case publicly at Waitangi.
The mere fact that getting on the Waitangi is a breakthrough for Māoridom. It'll be the first time ever that Māoridom has ever gone on as one people onto Waitangi. This, indeed, would be an honour.
A preliminary meeting between Hikoi leaders and the trust boards getting underway and will finalise arrangements for discussions with the Governor-General.
American Space Agency officials believe a $100 million communications satellite may have exploded soon after it was launched by the American Space Shuttle yesterday. A search by the Space Agency has only come up with some objects that could be parts of the missing satellite. They're in the same general orbit as the Space Shuttle. Loss of the communications satellite comes as an acute embarrassment to the American Space Agency. It was depending on the launching of satellites to earn revenue and was using the motto, "We deliver." While officials study the problem, they've told the astronauts to delay the launching of a second satellite. Hijackers today killed a crew member of a Brazilian airliner and ordered the pilot to fly to Cuba. When they landed at Havana, the 3 hijackers were promptly arrested by Cuban security police. The rest of the crew and the passengers were released unharmed. In Lebanon, hopes of a negotiated settlement are dim after a 3rd day of pitched battles between the Lebanese army and the Shiite Muslims. The Prime Minister has again submitted his resignation, and one report tonight says that this time the Lebanese president has accepted it.
Lebanon may well be standing on the brink of another civil war. For the 3rd successive day, battles raged in and around the capital, Beirut. The fighting has intensified each day, now involving long-range artillery battles and in some areas street-to-street fighting. Heavy black smoke still hangs above the southern suburbs where many of the civilians caught up in the fighting remain in basement shelters. Those brave enough to venture outside have been stocking up at bakeries and supermarkets, fearing food shortages if the situation deteriorates. One reporter said that the army is preparing to storm the predominantly Shiite suburbs in the south. But the army has denied this. It says the latest fighting began when gunmen fired on an army post and the troops counter-attacked. Because the fighting is so widespread, there are no accurate casualty figures, but both sides admit there must have been hundreds of dead and wounded. Blood is in short supply and hospitals have sent out urgent appeals for donors.
The Soviet Defense Minister, Marshal Ustinov, has suddenly cancelled a visit to India. He was due there tomorrow. The announcement from Moscow gave no reason for the decision. Here at home, a question mark hangs over the future of the Sweetwaters Rock Music Festival. Promoter Mr. Jeff King says no final decision will be made until he's had talks with his financial backers. Mr. King blames unpredictable weather for the drop in attendance at this year's festival, which finishes tonight.
The English cricket team, New Zealand rock fans, know what it's like to be on the end of a hiding, and they've certainly had one from the weather. Rainstorms throughout last night and today were too much for some, and they headed home. But dedicated followers of fashionable bands stayed and enjoyed one perk Sweetwaters has never offered before, a dust-free weekend. This is promoter Jeff King's first rock festival, and he can be excused for thinking someone up there doesn't like him. After upgrading the festival and booking headline acts that please nearly everyone, he says he could lose several $100,000, and all because of the weather. The big question is, will he do it again next year?
I have no idea.
But surely you must have some idea because you're the man at the helm.
No, I don't. You know, today's another day, tomorrow's another day in Christchurch, then the whole thing goes into the pot. What comes out is what's left.
Not everyone gave up on the weather. One optimist was well prepared just in case the sun shone through.
An international art expert believes that many old masterpieces may be lying undiscovered around New Zealand. Mr. Henry Wyndham, a director of Christie's of London, is in New Zealand looking for old English and European paintings to take back to England to sell on behalf of the owners. His visit has been prompted by the discovery last year of a Gainsborough painting in New Zealand, which Christie's sold at auction for nearly $300,000.
Room 408 at Auckland's Sheraton Hotel was like Victoria Station today, people bustling in and out, ever hopeful they possessed a painting by one of Europe's great masters. Henry Wyndham, a director of Christie's, studied this painting with intent. By the English painter George Morland, it was genuine and worth $6,000 to $8,000. The owner also had what appeared to be another Morland, but this time she wasn't so lucky.
Yes, now this is interesting actually, because this has the George Morland label on it. Which you can see here, but in fact is not by George Morland.
But the owner was thrilled to have at least one genuine article out of the two.
Yes, I see it, yes. Yes.
I knew when I first originally bought it that it was an original painting, but I'm very pleased to know that it is really as valuable as it is.
Then came something that looked like a Gainsborough.
Well, this picture has just come in, and in theory it's by Gainsborough. It's traditionally been called Gainsborough, but the thing is that it, for several reasons, it can't be by Gainsborough. The older the paint,
Disappointment,
the more the cracks,
but the Christie's man, like Dickens' Mr. Micawber, is ever hopeful that out of this Australasian trip, something excellent will turn up.
Is fairly new. It can happen, and well, one's always got to be optimistic about it, having come a long way, so I hope that that might happen. You never know.
600 anglers from all over New Zealand are chasing sharks in the annual Karuba shark hunt at Napier. Warm summer currents are sweeping into Hawke's Bay, bringing plenty of sharks and some fierce competition.
For half an hour, Napier angler Tony Baxter fought the biggest shark he'd ever seen, then suddenly it was lost. He's one of 600 anglers pitting their skills and strengths against the sharks. The youngest competitor is 10, the oldest 77, and they're not allowed the aid of mammal bait. Shark hunting can only guarantee the unexpected. The contest copies a Jamaican one and has captured the support of anglers from around the Pacific. It's become the biggest one-base game fishing contest in Australasia. This 146.5 kilogram blue whaler took Taradale angler Colin Murray just 90 minutes to land, the largest brought in for the weigh-in. The first day saw 145 sharks brought back. They're now destined for a fertiliser works after a scientist has taken heart samples for research.
Now here's Richard Long with Sports News.
Good evening. English cricket has suffered its biggest defeat this century, and it was inflicted by New Zealand at Lancaster Park. Forced to follow on today, England collapsed for a second time, leaving New Zealand the winners by an innings and 132 runs. It's the first time New Zealand has defeated England by more than an innings.
When the day opened, England were at 53 for 7 after the previous day's play. Their first wicket today fell in the 13th minute.
So he turns to bowl to Pygott. Oh, and that wraps him on the pad and he's out, OBW.
Chatfield to Willis.
Pygott gone, the next victim was Captain Bob Willis.
And he's edged it and he's caught by Coney at second slip. Just moving away nicely to his right. That's a good cop by Coney.
England finished their first innings with a score of 82. New Zealand had a first innings score of 307. The follow-on was enforced and the English disaster continued.
Hadley to Tavares. And that's an appeal for a catch behind, and Tavares is out. Hadley to Gar. And he's out. He's caught at fourth slip by Lance Cairns. What a breakthrough for New Zealand.
Next to go was Fowler.
Crow. This one wide to Getty. He's edged the slip. He's out, caught at slip.
With Gaffin gone, England were reeling at 31 for 4. Any hope of a stand was with all-rounder Ian Botham. But on the very next ball, New Zealand spin bowler Bock struck again.
He could be out. He is caught in close. A fine catch here. A magnificent anticipation by Crow. And so it's Chatfield to Lamb. And that's edged into the slip, and a brilliant catch by Jeremy Coney. And this is a half volley. And there could be a run out here. In fact, he is run out. Hadley. And he's edged it behind.
Bob Taylor run out, Norman Cowan's the last to go. England were all out for 93, the first time this century that England has failed to reach a century in either innings of a test match.
Rugby, and Scotland has consolidated its position at the top of the Five Nations competition by beating England 18-6. Scotland's points came from tries scored by David Johnston and Ewan Kennedy, both converted by Peter Dodds, who also kicked 2 penalties. Dusty Hare kicked 2 penalties for England. And in Dublin, Wales created an upset by beating Ireland by 18 points to 9. The only try was scored by Roger Ackerman for Wales.
Rave about Douglas to Dacey. Ackerman now, though. Wales try their hand. Good run by Ackerman, strong. Right the way through the 22, the dummy. Ackerman all the way, what a try!
Ireland, last year's joint champions, had no reply despite several valiant attempts right up to the last minute.
Wales just outside the 22. On goes Willie Duncan. Ireland drive again. McGrath, cross on. Trying to get round Titley. McGrath again, the ball thrown forward. The nearest that Ireland came to a try in the dying moment of the match. The final whistle goes, and Wales have done it.
A spectacular accident marred the finals of the National Drag Racing Championship south of Auckland today. Christchurch driver Greg Taylor escaped serious injury when his 2,000 horsepower dragster went out of control. Taylor's car is on the left. The dragster would have been doing more than 160 kilometres an hour when it hit the safety barrier. It's capable of more than twice that speed. There have only been 3 serious accidents in the 10-year history of the Mary Mary Dragway, and this was the first one to result in injury. Taylor, who's 26, is an experienced driver. He was national champion 6 years ago. The big 460 cubic inch Chevrolet Rail was one of the favourites for this year's title, but the crash completely demolished the car. The fact that Taylor survived speaks volumes for the safety equipment used in drag racing. Taylor was taken to hospital where he's reported to have only a suspected broken ankle and bruising. There was no hint of trouble before the race. The dragster had made 2 runs yesterday, which were straight as a die. At the moment, the cause of the accident remains a mystery. The National Drag Racing title was eventually won by John Heskett of Hamilton, whose car completed the standing quarter mile in 6.88 seconds. Well, that's the sports news. Now let's have a look at the weather prospects for Waitangi Day with Veronica.
Good evening. It was cloudy with a few showers today in the north and west of the North Island and the east of the South Island. And there was some morning rain in Wairarapa and also Wellington. Other than that, fine. Let's see how the 3 o'clock temperatures looked. Kaitaia on 22 and 21 in Hamilton. 20 from New Plymouth, Wanganui and Palmerston North. 17 in Wellington and Blenheim, 16. 18 from Nelson, Westport 20. 18 in Hokitika, Queenstown 16 and Invercargill 16. 23 in Whangarei, Auckland 22, Tauranga also 22, 21 from Rotorua and Gisborne, Napier and Hastings on 23 and Masterton 16, 14 from Kaikoura, Christchurch 16, Timaru 15, Dunedin 13. Today's high was 23 of Whangarei, Dargaville, Whakatane, Kaurau, Napier and Hastings. The low was 12 at
Well, he sort of forgot, yeah. But it's all there. You can go in the county. We'll look at you. You're soaked clear through.